I've been replaying some of the Souls games, and so I started thinking about certain, I don't know if you'd call them, you know, tropes or game designs that sort of resonate with me, and I was wondering if you had any of them. So, like for example, uh, one thing I really like in games is where early on, especially if it's like sort of like a semi-open world type game, is where early on there's an enemy who the first time you're playing, it's just sort of like they're like impossible to beat, or an area or something like that. It's just really hard to do, and you just can't do it when you first start. And then you move on, and then you come back to that because it sort of like adds a sense of wonder. I feel like when the game's sort of open, because you know there's something there, but you're just not good enough to get it, and then eventually you get better and you go back there.
Uh-huh.
And then like if you play through the game again, maybe you're good enough to do that right away at the beginning of the game, and maybe that nets you a benefit or something. But the fact that you're starting off and you're knowing like, okay, I'm not that strong, I need to improve, and then I'll come back here and there's more to do here. That always like that always sets me off with the right feeling in a game. I feel. Um, so I was wondering if there was anything sort of like that resonates with you.
Um, trying to think.
I like when Geralt fucks girls.
That was never immediate though with the Witcher games.
I just wish he fucked them faster.
Well, and I'm sure I've talked about this. I think a lot of the time when I look at games to get, most of the time I don't think gameplay mechanics are part of it.
Hmm.
I end up looking for a story I can really invest in.
Right.
I think that's the main thing I look for. Because I'm thinking about the certain tropes in my favorite games, and the thing that they really have in common is just I love the stories. Not necessarily anything to do with the gameplay, I think.
I mean, try to think gameplay wise. I mean, you must like something about some sort of style or
Let me Google.
what is gameplay?
I'm gonna look up some tropes.
Yeah, I don't know if trope is like the right word for it, but that's sort of just what I'm saying. I'll give you another one. Like, I always appreciate when you've got a game that's like, it's like an action RPG, or maybe it's like some sort of turn-based RPG, but
Mm.
there's there's a separate sort of sub game within the game. So like,
Oh, like
um,
Gwent.
exactly, that's exactly what I was thinking. So like something like Gwent in The Witcher. Usually when it's a card game, I love that because I love card games, and stuff like Gwent. I mean, even like stuff like Dot Hack, GU had a card game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Stuff like that, and that's something that I always love because it gives you a bit of like you get to break up the pacing because you get to play the card game, and if it's designed well, then that's cool. They're usually not designed well enough to like have their own game, but it's nice to have. And then also it gives you something. It gives you something that you want to seek out while you're actually playing the primary game. Is that okay? I want to find cards to make my Gwent deck better or something along those lines.
Right.
So that adds like another. It adds more richness to the world in that way, and the fact that I also like card games, and you can sort of throw that in there. I always enjoy that.
Yeah, I think the mini games being in the game is actually pretty fun. Um, I haven't encountered it that much though. Like it's obviously there, and I think all the Witcher games, they all had a different sort of mini game in them. Wild Hunt obviously was Gwent. I can't remember what the first two were, but then you have you have the classic card games in the Red Dead games, and also you have
Oh yeah, yeah.
in Red Dead 2 you have what's it called? Uh, when you got the knife and you're trying to not stab your fingers.
Oh yeah. I don't know what that's called, but I know what you're talking about.
5 finger fillet,
Filet.
fillet. Yeah, that's what it's called. And they have dominoes and everything. That's cool. It's sort of a way to like, because sometimes this, when you're doing hours of story, you just kind of get tired for a bit, but you don't really want to stop playing the game. So that's something you can do.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a smart choice because normally you would take a break or whatever, and you would maybe do something simpler like that in a different game
Yeah.
or in real life or whatever. And so having the option to like, okay, I don't feel like playing action combat right now. I just want to do this for a bit.
Yeah.
I really like that, and it's something that, like when I think about game design, that's always something that sticks out to me as like, yes, if I ever end up making a full game, that's something that I would really like to put in there.
Would well, this isn't necessarily a trope, but anytime I play a game and there's a fireplace or there's a if there's fire at some point, and I always wonder, I wonder if I'll take damage, and I'll walk I'll walk onto the fire, and then if I take damage, I'm like, cool.
I don't know if that's quite the same thing,
No, not a
but
trope.
no, I definitely do that too. I mean, so you appreciate the realism when you do take damage, or do you?
Yeah. I definitely, I really like when the game designers take the time to put in small details, like what was that Tom Clancy game where they're sleeper agents and they wake up, it's the future.
No idea.
Give me one sec. Tom Clancy. The Division. Horrible game.
Oh, right.
Terrible game. Not, I mean, it's so stupid, but they do the small details right. Like, you're taking cover by a car, and if the door is open, they'll just shut it as they walk by it. When you meet NPCs in a town, you leave, you come back, they remember who.
So it seems like you like the realism aspect of things.
Yeah, probably. Well, music. Would music be part of a? Was that a trope? Music in a game?
No, but I mean, it doesn't have to be a trope necessarily. Just sort of the aspects of games that you like.
Then yeah, I think music would be one too. And not necessarily even soundtrack, just like scores and how much attention they put in the music. Because, like with anything, with a TV show or a movie, the music really sets the tone, and it can really, with the right music, it can make just a regular scene be that much better.
How do you feel about, because you were talking about the realism and all that, how do you feel about like games that have sort of like a home sort of system? I don't know if if The Witcher did that or Red Dead, where you sort of like have a home or a base where you can do things like cook and all that.
Oh, they both have that actually. Well, less so in The Witcher. The Witcher, it's the second DLC has that.
Right.
I'm sure I'm not spoiling this for you because I don't know if you care about the Witcher game's story at this point. So, in the second DLC, Blood and Wine, I think, is she a queen? Point is, she gives you a home for taking on this monster contract. And so you spend, apart from tracking down the monster and doing everything that map can offer, you also rebuild this old house. And Geralt gets to go home, and then that's where he can sleep and There's food there all the time. He can hang up his swords, his armor, paintings. Pretty cool. You spend way more money on that than any other thing in the game.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Red Dead has that. You have camps and you provide money for the camp. You can buy upgrades, new furniture, things like that. So I think I like that aspect of it. It's like kind of making you feel at home, and especially with a game like Red Dead, when you have a gang with you, you feel like you're kind of taking care of that gang by doing
Right.
that. Yeah, so home bases are cool. I think I don't know if I've encountered many other games that do that though.
I mean, a lot of games that I've played sort of do. Sometimes, I mean, it really depends for me because, like, at least from what I'm hearing about the Witcher one, that sounds really sounds pretty comfy to me. Just the idea of being contracted to hunt a monster and gaining this property because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I liked houses in games like Skyrim. That's a pretty cool house system because they had a DLC for like making your own home. You could buy previously you could buy like houses that were already existing in the world, but then with one of the DLCs, you could build your own and sort of design it how you like, which is pretty neat. And then, of course, like I played a good number of MMOs. And speaking of the spending more money than you would on anything else, that's exactly how it is in those games where player housing is just all about like pumping money into it, basically end game stuff. I don't know. It's like I feel like a theme running through a lot of these is just like attention to detail outside of uh, the main the main story and the main gameplay.
Yeah.
So for things like Gwent and things like housing and stuff like that, it's sort of like it makes it feel more like a, not only does it break up the monotony or whatever, but it makes it feel more like a world in a way.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I'm not really a fan of.
Aladdin.
I'm not really a fan of when you're playing a game and you have a sniper mission.
Classic Witcher.
Well, yeah, obviously it's not in The Witcher, but
You don't like sniper missions?
no, because it's. I think the main issue I have with it is I can't get out of the scope. Typically, when I've played a sniper mission, you're always looking through the scope.
Uh-huh.
You can't look out and see where your character, who you're supposed to cover, is. You just have to be on the scope the whole time.
I feel like you're talking about a very specific thing.
I feel like most games I played that have sniper missions do that.
And I'm thinking of like the Call of Duties and Medal of Honors and stuff that I played. Generally, that hasn't been my experience. Although I do kind of hate when you're doing a sniping mission and they try to throw the stealth aspect in there, because that's something I don't really like. Is the whole stealth aspect of games? Yeah, it's just not very appealing to me. Yeah,
yeah. Like in the Batman games and the Spider-Man games, where you're just sort of moving about and taking people up and then tying them to a pole and things like that. I kind of like that aspect of it. It makes me feel smart.
You should never feel smart playing a Batman game.
Those games are good.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just never really appealed to me. I mean, even though like sometimes like I guess I talked about Skyrim. Like in Skyrim, the first time I played through it, I had basically my build was like a stealth archer. But I guess what was nice about that is you were stealth from a distance. Like I never really liked creeping around like near people because it just kind of got annoying. Because like maybe I'm just bad at it, but you'd always get caught.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And like some games are like centered entirely around stealth, and it's just I've never seen the appeal to that.
Well, I think if it's used too much, the fun of it kind of goes away because you're just doing this the whole time and you're not really doing anything else in terms of gameplay.
Right.
But if you have a stealth mission here and there, or you can avoid, having enemy backup be called by doing stealth, and I like that aspect of it.
Hmm. That just reminded me of something else I really like. Um, and you got something that's sort of open world is so I talked about like having like the early on enemy or boss that you just can't beat. You have to sort of come back later or
Mm-hmm.
just get good. Um, I also like when there's uh, optional bosses or like secret bosses
Mm-hmm.
that are sort of like off the beaten path. That's such like a the completionist in me really enjoys that.
Right.
Of just like having this content that you don't have to do, but it's just like yeah, I'm gonna do that. I mean, basically, I'm just talking about I'm just praising Dark Souls again, but um, I don't know. It's a great feeling. I recently bought Dark Souls 3 for the PC because I only played it on the PS4.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and generally, I mean, I've liked the game sort of less and less each each installment. And I mean, they're done now, but I still enjoy 3, and it looks great.
Do you ever make choices in Dark Souls?
The only choices you make are whether to help certain NPCs
Mm-hmm.
and whether to kill NPCs, more or less.
So
There
does
are
it?
certain choices that you can get different endings of the game too,
Okay.
and sometimes those involve killing or helping certain NPCs.
Okay.
Um, but there is generally choice in terms of like most of the people that you can talk to, except the ones that are completely necessary, you can just kill
Mm-hmm.
and like maybe they'll drop something good, maybe they won't. Um, but generally, I mean, it's not. They've got a lot of story that's sort of hidden in like item descriptions and stuff like that, but it's not really. Um, Besides the ending, the story isn't so much based on your decisions.
Okay.
It's more so about the gameplay than anything.
Right. Because I think, yeah, and I know this is something I talk to you a lot about, but I love when the ending of the game is when you can change it by the choices
Mm-hmm.
you've made in the story, or how maybe like even this a side story,
Right.
like little things that just add up. I always like that, but that's I guess that also falls into like attention to detail type thing.
Yeah, I mean those sort of systems. The one thing I don't like about them, I think they do. I think they can do a lot of cool things, like story wise, by implementing stuff like a karma system or certain choices leading to certain outcomes. But um, one thing that annoys me about having multiple ends is that a lot of times it makes me want to, or at least feel a compulsion to play through the game like multiple times, even if I don't necessarily want to or have the time to or whatever. It's just sort of like, man, I want to get that other end. I guess that's sort of the point, right? Um,
I've never had that though.
no, you just
No,
got your ending and you're like, okay, that's good.
I get my ending and I want to compare how I did with other people.
So you just look up the ending.
And so I'll look up what happens if you did this and this and this, and I'll be like, huh, I did all right, or I'll be like, oh fuck, I fucked up by doing that. And I think I'll tolerate nah, games that aren't necessarily great more if they actually have choice systems, you know,
Right.
like Telltale and um, what is it, Heavy Rain. I mean, Heavy Rain's pretty good, but it's not really a game. It's mostly quick time events are
Right.
really things I don't typically like, but I'll tolerate it, especially if the whole point of your game is that you're affecting the story.
It's interesting because like I did I did the short review on Resident Evil 2, and there's a lot of stuff that I could talk about, but I didn't really feel like going into in depth. And one of the things is like in the remake, there's assisted mode,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically like easy mode, or I'm sure you've noticed some games have like a difficulty that's like story difficulty
Yeah, where
or something along
basically
those
you
lines.
just do the story.
Right. Where it's like the gameplay won't be challenging at all.
I don't like
It's
that.
just basically you want to go through the cutscenes.
Yeah.
And I find that weird that people would want that in games where your choice doesn't really matter that much. It's like Resident Evil 2. The campaign that you're on, that's the ending that you get. There's no choice in that way. So like I don't get why you would be playing if I mean, I guess you just want to watch the cutscenes. I guess that's cool. I don't know. But then like people come out with edits online that are just like Resident Evil 2 the movie and it's just all the cutscenes. So it's
Yeah.
like I don't really get doing that. I could sort of understand more if it's like um, a game that's more focused like Telltale, but then it's like, well, the gameplay's not challenging at all there anyway, so you don't need it.
Yeah, it's all quick time. And then annoying walking around to find clues in a room.
Sherlock Holmes type.
But you know, if I walk into the game knowing that's what it is, then I'm fine with it.
Right.
Yeah, if yeah, I don't understand getting a game like Resident Evil and only playing it for the cutscenes.
Especially since it's such a short game. Like a lot of the playtime you get out of it is like struggling with uh, actually living through things.
Right.
Um, but I don't know. I mean, I'll never get too mad at having an assisted mode because you can always just not use it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like if people want to use it, I want people to have as good of a time as they can with games. So like, I'm not gonna judge you too hard for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially, I don't know, like uh, maybe you're like disabled or something, and you can't. Maybe you can't use both hands or something like that. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of different aspects where it's kind of cool to have those modes,
Right.
just because you don't necessarily know the capabilities of the players.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm kind of throwing shade at people who aren't disabled and are playing assisted by saying that. I don't mean to. That's just sort of how it comes across. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's a little. I mean, I wanted to bring this up in the review, but I didn't. It's sort of like difficulties in general. I don't like because I always get such a bad feeling when I start a game and there's a difficulty select, and like if I don't choose the hardest difficulty,
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like, oh man, well, I'm probably gonna regret that because like I don't know, maybe there's an achievement involved with it, or maybe this is different with it. Like I don't know. Whereas like if you just have a game that's just this is the game, you can play it however you want, and you either die or you don't. Like something like Dark Souls.
Right.
I really appreciate that because then you know like this is the game as they intended it. Like with assisted mode in Resident Evil 2, basically enemies deal less damage and also like you automatically heal. So it's
Oh.
like that's obviously not how the game was made. It's just like an additional mode.
Right.
So I prefer just to have just one experience and it's one less thing to think about. It's just like, well, this isn't hard mode. This is just the game, and I'll get better at it if I'm not winning. Um, I don't know. So, although that does Resident Evil does remind me of one more thing that I like about one thing that I like in games is that when it's a game like either it's a short game or it's a game maybe you're meant to play multiple times or something like that, where it's sort of like how I was bringing up, like having an early monster is really hard in your first playthrough,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like there are puzzles or codes or whatever that you need, and when you're first playing, you just discover those through like whatever you need to do. But then when you play through again, you already know them, and so you get to do things in a different order. That's something I actually really like in Resident Evil, because like if you look the codes up online, then that's just kind of lame. It doesn't really add anything.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something actually kind of cool about playing through again and like maybe on a different character or whatever, and you already know what those codes are because you already played. I feel like there's a cool kind of uh, metagaming aspect that I kind of like. Um,
Well, in terms of the mechanics of this, I wouldn't know how to explain it because I'm not, like I said, not really well versed in it. But Horizon Zero Dawn, I really liked the archery aspect of it. I thought it was. I can't really explain it because I don't really know. But I feel like most games, like the archery is either too fast or too slow.
Right.
That one I feel like it was kind of cool. But I remember talking to you about this when. Remember how she finds that ancient, not cave, like laboratory, and you have to find those power cells to get that suit.
Yeah, yeah, like the ultimate suit or whatever.
Yeah, the ultimate suit. I'm like, oh, dope. She's gonna look super futuristic. And then she ends up like destroying the suit, putting parts of it on her tribal gear. And I'm like, why? It would have been so much cooler if she wore the suit and made her look like a robot. And on top of that, the suit is completely overpowered.
Right. I feel like you just jumped over archery now and you're talking about the suit.
I know. I just remembered that aspect of it.
Right. Yeah, I haven't thought about Horizon Zero Dawn in a long time.
Yeah. I like the game.
But no, good.
It's not a favorite.
Good feeling archery is that's really cool. I mean, like being able to like free aim smoothly.
Yeah.
Is pretty cool, and doing the sort of drop off of the arrow and stuff like that is cool. Game like Dragon's Dogma, I think
that's good.
had really cool feeling archery.
Where are the
It was one of those games, and I don't know exactly how to describe it either, but I think I've talked to you about this before, where it's like it's a game that doesn't feel right to me. Like
what game?
Dragon's Dogma.
Oh.
Like, obviously it's a game, it's not real life, but like you feel like you're not there. I don't know how to describe it, but at least for me, that's how Dragon's Dogma feels. Like certain aspects of the world are very like empty, and it just doesn't feel like a game in a weird way. I've played a couple of games where I felt that way about it, like that. What's the other one? Shit. I have it in my Steam library. I can't remember what it was called. That shows you how much I liked it. Kingdoms of Amalur.
Kingdom Come.
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah, that too. Kingdom Come does fall into that too.
Oh.
So stuff like, so Dragon's Dogma, Kingdoms of Amalur, Kingdom Come Deliverance, 3 very different games, by the way. But I think the through line between them is that the world sort of feels undeveloped in a lot of ways, and that sort of takes me out of it. I never really thought too much about what exactly it was that made it feel off, but I think it's that. But the gameplay of Dragon's Dogma is pretty cool, and the archery is pretty awesome. I think my first character I ever played on it was an archer. And
very well rated game.
Oh yeah. It wasn't super popular when it first came out, but then like when they released like the expansion for it and stuff like that, it really well, even before that a little bit, it really started picking up. But yeah, good archery is really cool. And even when like they approach things that are unrealistic, like in Dragon's Dogma, where you can shoot like multiple arrows in a row, just like all in succession. It's not realistic, but it feels good.
Yeah.
So I'm always a fan of that. And I guess one more thing that I don't like in games, because you talked about the armor in Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
I don't like when games have equipment systems that don't actually change how your equipment looks, like your armor and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but it's always such a letdown. Even if like this change is subtle, I don't care. I just like it to change. And when it doesn't, I'm just like, what the fuck is this?
Do you remember when we played, was it Diablo that we played on the PS4?
Yeah.
And I kept wanting to spend the money we got on what's it called when you
Transmogrifying.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. That's always like a conflict for me because like I've been in, games like even when you're small like that, I still care about the equipment. So I've been in a lot of positions where like you get a better piece of equipment, but it
yeah.
looks ugly as hell,
Yeah.
and you're like, man, I don't know about this. Um,
I think if I had played that game alone, I probably would have spent all that money on transmorifying.
I think if you played that game alone, you would have stopped playing it.
Probably.
It was pretty short though.
It was pretty short.
Um,
But yeah, I think it was more
Surprisingly
fun with
short, I think.
more fun playing with someone.
Yeah.
Just I
Oh yeah, you're definitely meant to with those.